This 17 News at Noon podcast is brought to you by Clinica Sierra Vista.
Welcome back to the 17 News at Noon podcast, where we share your news on your schedule.
Well, good day. I'm Elena Rusk. PG&E working to repair a gas leak at Myra A. Noble Elementary School in Northeast Bakersfield. In a letter shared with parents of Noble Elementary students, the Bakersfield City School District said they were notified of the in-water utility box buried underground gas leak about 4:30 yesterday afternoon. The gas was turned off and PG&E is there working on the leak now, but the school was kept open as officials said the repairs caused no threats to students and staff. But parents were strongly encouraged to make sure their students were dressed appropriately for the brisk weather in rooms where there may not be heat. Some classrooms, though, use electric heating systems and are not affected, according to the district. Officials were unable to confirm when the leak will be repaired and when that gas will be turned back on. In the 43rd annual Bakersfield Prayer Breakfast returned to the Mechanics Bank Arena this morning. Bakersfield Reverend Mark Joseph Lawrence, a retired bishop, led the community in prayer with an estimated 1,000 people in attendance, the first time this annual event has had full attendance since before the pandemic. The organizers say this breakfast is held annually to pray for our community, state, and governmental leaders. A man is under arrest for reportedly stealing a jacket from a deputy's car at the downtown jail last October and then getting caught wearing it back to the jail last week. The items stolen from the deputy's car on Halloween were worth about $1,440, investigators said in a warrant. Those stolen items included ammunition, a vehicle diagnostics tablet, keys, and a custom-made Lexus jacket. That jacket made a reappearance at the jail on January 14th as 23-year-old Vincent Pablo Dareg was wearing it when he was brought in for booking on charges of possession of drugs and a stolen vehicle, according to the warrant. Records show Dareg was released from jail the night of the deputy's car burglary, and investigators reviewed surveillance footage that showed him loitering the south parking lot and walking toward the unattended vehicles, according to that warrant. And if you saw a large column of smoke over southwest Bakersfield this morning, it was part of an accident at an auto shop. The Bakersfield Fire Department tells 17 News workers at Euro Auto Works were performing maintenance on a vehicle when it caught fire. The sprinkler inside the building was activated, but crews tell us the fire did not reach the shop and no one was hurt. All right, let's turn now to your 17 Court Watch, a potential legal challenge for the Tiny Homes Village project that is planned in Oildale. As 17's Jim Scott reported to you this weekend on Kern County In Depth, a lawsuit has been filed against the county by a citizen of Oildale, alleging the county violated California's Environmental Quality Act guidelines in approving the site for that project. Michelle Lavoie says the county failed to disclose the property in question in its zoning within the boundaries of the Kern River corridor, and that any development project in that zone must first receive a KRC permit, but only after a public hearing. The land in question is also zoned for a mobile home park, and the claim argues the Tiny Homes Village is not compatible with that zoning. That claimant asking the court for a preliminary injunction for starts to put the project on hold until further notice. County Council says it cannot comment on pending litigation. A county spokesman did say that the project is moving forward, however. And yet another twist in the case of Angelique Nash, who was convicted of murder in the 2010 death of 81-year-old Dorothy Session. Nash was 17 when she acted as a lookout while her 15-year-old sister, Katila Nash, along with 17-year-old David Moses, entered Session's East Bakersfield home planning to steal valuables. Moses hit Session, knocking her down. She died from her injuries suffered in that attack. The Nashes and Moses were convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life terms in prison. However, in 2019, a new law said a person must actually commit or aid in a killing or have the intent to kill during the commission of a crime in order to be charged with murder. Angelique Nash had her murder conviction dismissed, but an appeals court said her case will be sent back to Kern County because the trial judge forgot to formally vacate her murder conviction when she was resentenced for first-degree burglary. All right, let's turn to some lighter news around town. The building on Rosedale Highway that housed the Hooters restaurant is getting a fresh look. Crews were seen painting over the building's mural, preparing for new owners yesterday. The business sign on the door lists Luis Alberto Navarro is bringing the Brazos Latin cuisine to that location. Hooters closed suddenly in November last year. And another new business is close to opening. The popular coffee bean and tea leaf chain is set to open its first Bakersfield location. A sign on Buena Vista Road in the southwest announces the planned 2022 opening of a coffee bean store at the Seven Oaks Business Park. And when we checked in with the business in December, they said they should be open in about a month, which is now. We're still waiting to hear back on the latest update, but founded in Southern California in 1963, the coffee bean and tea leaf has expanded to over 1,000 locations in 32 countries. And let's look ahead now. Bakersfield College is bringing back their Garden Fest this spring after a 4-year hiatus. BC's Horticulture Department will host the event on Saturday, April 15th from 9 a.m. to 4 in Bakersfield College's Renegade Park. New to this year's Garden Fest, it's themed Here We Grow Again, will be a beer and wine garden, food trucks, and organic gardening, including Bakersfield College's Edible Education Garden. Garden Fest will feature more than 150 vendors, from gardening tips and products to pets, cooking, outdoor leisure, arts, crafts, home decor, and more. Admission and parking will be free.
Hello, this is Tim Callahan with Clinica Sierra Vista, and we're excited to unveil the Community Health Center of the Future, our comprehensive care center. It's located right across the street from Memorial Hospital. We have every service under one roof, from family medicine, OBGYN care, dental services for adults and children, behavioral health, and much more. So find your way to better care at Clinica Sierra Vista this year at our comprehensive care center. Visit our website, clinicasierravista.org, for the latest on this project. We'll see you soon.
California has now seen 3 mass shootings in just a 48-hour period. While the investigation continues and the death toll rises to 11 for the Lunar New Year celebration shooting in Monterey Park, at least 7 people were killed and 1 person seriously injured after a gunman opened fire at 2 sites in the community of Half Moon Bay yesterday. In Oakland, another person killed and several injured in a 3rd shooting. NBC's Jay Gray is in Monterey Park with the latest.
As the investigation and mourning continues here in Monterey Park, the state of California now dealing with 3 mass shootings in as many days. The first here, 11 people killed as they were celebrating the Lunar New Year. The second in Oakland, 1 killed, 7 injured. And the third just yesterday in Half Moon Bay in the Bay Area, 7 killed and 1 injured there. And the first and second here in Monterey Park, as well as in Half Moon Bay, there are a lot of similarities. Older Asian men, the suspects, the gunmen, according to police, and attacking members of the Asian community. We also know that in both these cases, while we don't know a motive, investigators do say that they appear to be personally driven, not any kind of act of terror. Now, here in Monterey Park, we're learning a little bit more about the evidence being recovered by officers. We know that there were 42 shots fired inside the dance hall here, and at the suspect's home, we know that they recovered weapons, a cache of ammunition, over 100 rounds. We also know that there were supplies to make homemade suppressors in the suspect's home as well. Again, no motive in any of these shootings at this point, as the state of California continues to grieve just overwhelming loss in the last 3 days. That is the latest from here in Monterey Park. I'm Jay Gray. Now back to you.
All right, and in the wake of the Monterey Park deadly mass shooting, a verified GoFundMe account has been set up to support the victims' families. So far, they've received more than $175,000 in donations. If you'd like to give, you can find that fundraiser on our website, kget.com. Well, 17 News, your local election headquarters. And this morning, Kern's new registrar of voters spoke briefly at the Board of Supervisors meeting, and the topic of election integrity also took center stage. Every election, California is known for being one of the slowest states to count ballots and get results. The state's policies, such as requiring a 1% manual tally and allowing mail-in ballots to arrive up to a week after Election Day, do require a lot of time. Amy Espinoza, Kern's new registrar of voters, says Kern County only has 1 sorter machine currently, but now with more mail-in ballots, we may need another. Espinoza says the funds are there, but the office doesn't have the room for it. However, headed into 2024, she is working with the Board of Supervisors to possibly create the space needed for that second sorter. Meanwhile, last night, a former law professor who has been traveling the country arguing against the outcome of the 2020 election was in Bakersfield, stopping by Rock Harbor Church. David Clements spoke to the Greater Bakersfield Republican Assembly about so-called election fraud and rigged voting machines. One of the organizers brought that information from last night to the Board of Supervisors today, hoping the county will decide to change its vote counting system and go back to a manual count. 17's Maddie Gannon will have more on this meeting in front of the supervisors tonight on 17 News at 5. And now to the California capital. Following our historic and devastating series of storms, multiple flood protection projects in California are on hold because Governor Gavin Newsom has proposed to cut the funding. Newsom's state budget proposal includes cutting $40 million that had been pledged to pay for floodplain restoration here in the San Joaquin Valley. Newsom approved the money last year, back when the state had a record budget surplus, but now the state is facing an estimated $22.5 billion deficit. California Natural Resources Secretary Wade Crowfoot says the projects are eligible to get funding from other places in the state budget, but environmental advocates say that would significantly delay the work. And now let's turn to Capitol Hill, the Senate back in Washington, and apparently they still have no plan to lift the debt ceiling, which the country exceeded last week. The Treasury Department has notified Congress that it's time to again raise the nation's debt ceiling now to $31 trillion to allow more borrowing to pay of the country's accumulated bills. Treasury said it has started taking, quote, extraordinary measures to keep paying the bills, but the money will run out by June. Republicans insisting on deep reductions and Democrats demanding Republicans unveil their spending cuts. They also say that those could include reductions to programs like Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, which account for about 70% of all federal spending. Let's turn now to tech news. In just the past month, there have been about 50,000 job cuts across the technology sector, including among the biggest names online like Twitter, Meta, Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. Large and small tech companies alike went on a hiring spree over the past several years due to a surge in demand for their products, software, and services, with millions of people working remotely. However, even with all these layoffs announced in recent weeks, most tech companies are vastly larger than they were before the pandemic. And Spotify says it will cut 6% of its global workforce now because it needs to reduce costs. The music streaming company based in Sweden says the job cuts are difficult but necessary. The 6% reduction translates to about 588 employees. The company admits it was too ambitious investing in the company. Spotify more than tripled its workforce in recent years and has been expanding into new markets and launching exclusive content like podcasts. All right, let's turn now to your 17 Health Watch. Researchers in Portugal say caffeine and other coffee compounds may counter stress in the liver. They found that liver disease is a common complication of type 2 diabetes and can even lead to cancer. Researchers say the condition is often the result of a high-calorie diet and unhealthy lifestyle. And we're learning the Department of Justice is reportedly investigating the baby formula manufacturer Abbott Laboratories. The Wall Street Journal says the plant in Sturgis, Michigan, is under investigation for processes that led to its temporary shutdown and contributed to a formula shortage for weeks nationwide. Abbott's plant temporarily shut down in February 2022 after infants got sick after consuming formula made at their facility. The plant produces the popular brands Similac and Elecare. All right, let's turn now to the coronavirus and the FDA considering annual COVID vaccines just like your flu shot. Regulators proposed one dose of the latest updated COVID-19 shot annually for healthy adults yesterday. The Food and Drug Administration's advisory panel on vaccines is set to consider an annual schedule for the coronavirus vaccine when they meet on Thursday. The regulator suggested the need for routine selection of variants for updating the vaccine, similar to the way strains for flu vaccines are changed annually too.
The 17 News at Noon podcast is a production of KGET and Nexstar Media Group. For more on all of the headlines in today's show, head to kget.com.